No? All right. Looks like. Haha. My mic was off. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the 6th round post fight show with me, Zane Simon. I am flying solo today. And Eddie, unfortunately, left me to go to his sister's wedding. That ass. I can't believe it. No reason at all that he should abandon the show for family. What is family? I don't need it. Anyway, I'm here coming to y'all from the conclusion of UFC 306 going down in at the Sphere in Las Vegas, Nevada. And as I was saying before I realized that my mic went off, I went on my mic was off. I went on a whole journey with this card. I didn't think that it was going to take me in so many emotional directions. But I feel like I really experienced something. Most notably, wow, the early going of this card was not it was a lot of fun fights, but it was not an amazing production. It was they really did not build into the Sphere at all in the prelims. I thought that we would be getting a taste of all of the big, technical showcase stuff that they'd been talking about for months, get something to lure us all into the pay-per-view. But other than some like Mortal Kombat background graphics they gave us during Dumont Aldana, it really was not an impressive experience as a TV viewer. I will say though, and this is full props to the UFC. They really did kick it up a notch for the pay-per-view card. They had those little movies going in and out. They were a little like mid video game mid video game CGI graphicsy, but I bet they were that they were pretty exciting for people who were there live. I don't want to diminish it and say that, for the TV experience, it was just, mediocre. I bet if you were there in the stands watching that shit, it was like, holy crap, this is huge. And then notably, so I was starting to get a little impressed by the time that the show was kicking into Shevchenko Grasso. I mean, that Lopez Ortega fight was fun. Ribovich Zellhuber was awesome. And Rodriguez Osborne, these were all really fun fights, Great opening to the card. And I was ready I even wrote up an editorial that I think I'm going to have to go back and change now. That was basically to say, I think this was a pretty successful night for the UFC. And it probably still is financially. I bet this thing did pretty well for them. I bet this was, they made their quota for pay-per-view sales that they wanted to hit and all that. And I'll give a shout out to former fellow Bloody Elbow alum Smoogie for his analysis leading into the event over on Twitter that he did, where he noted that really what the most likely reason this whole event exists, and it's the reason that the UFC might still walk away from this all feeling like it was a especially good success, was that this existed as a showcase for UFC production standards for their upcoming broadcast rights negotiation. Because as a product, if the UFC is looking to go on and make more money in the future and to grow, and as a company that, as a part of TKO and Endeavor and part of a publicly traded company, they now actually have shareholder responsibility to keep becoming more profitable and grow constantly. The Sphere card was meant to show upcoming buyers, Netflix, Amazon, ESPN, whoever else, we can do bigger, more ostentatious productions with the staff we have in-house. If you let us control our own brand and you pay us to do everything ourselves the way we have been, then we will be able to, we can produce bigger and better. We can grow, we can do new things, bring in new experiences, et cetera, et cetera. It's basically like a commercial for upcoming UFC negotiations. And on that front, it might still be pretty successful. The show, the fights, the last two fights, we'll get to this in a minute here. I'm going to get to the actual fights here in a moment. But the production went off without a hitch, by and large. There were no big glitches. There was no weird dead air. There was no big commentary slip-ups or whatever. The videos looked the way they were supposed to. Save, and I noted this comment earlier, but I'll bring it back up. Save that last video. And yeah, I tried to like bring in and do an announcement and get excitement, people excited and all that, but the combination of these two title fights and that last video that they tried to end their little movie on, and people who might know me know I watch a lot of movies. That was not a movie. That was a terrible way to sell it going in, that we're going to have this movie broken up in parts. Like, no, those were like I say, they were mid-video game cutscenes. And I think a big reason that they had to have them be CGI like that, and this is I think a problem for production with any kind of Sphere event at all, is that if you're trying to put on an event for the Sphere, you can't really use a lot of camera footage because it's not going to scale up to that level of resolution. It's going to look really pixelated and shitty on a screen that size. You kind of have to have a HD CGI digital video to show, or it's going to look funky and cheap. So the UFC, and if you're doing that like the UFC, you've got like a couple of months to knock together a bunch of super high def CGI videos. I think their video package was about as good as they could do, with the exception of that last one that was really just trying to project out into the future and ended up just being CGI slop. The woman's trying to, she's like twisting around in midair in this sort of cartoonish, like, let your kid play a superhero video game and they fly around and they don't know any of the controls, so they're just careening everywhere kind of thing. And then like have her just spin in a circle to light the torches without actually lighting any of them. And it just looked really cheap and dumb. And as people are noting in the chat, it was just, people were fucking over it. And I know that this is, pretty much an audience entirely populated by rich assholes. And they don't pop for anything. You're not going to get rich people like really excited about any video package, about any, fighter. They're not out. They barely popped for Rey Mysterio. They're not out there appreciating any of this. But it was really clear by the end of it that people were absolutely exhausted. And they just, none of the end stuff went over. The card went too long for a card that only had 10 fights. The video thing really just slowed everything to a crawl and made it, I think, by the end, people were feeling it. And that is going to be the hard part of this to escape. Should be noted, shout out to they're not winning any Emmys for that video package, but the ring girl costumes, those were really well done and on point. And I wish that if the UFC can take anything away from this whole production, it's, if you're gonna still have ring girls, do fucking more with them. Make that something cool. This was cool. This was fun. And it didn't, that was like the least expensive part of this whole thing. That was absolutely the part of this that they spent the least money on. And that was like the coolest thing that everybody's going to remember and talk about. So, ring girl costumes, good. Video production, mediocre. Pacing, bad. That brings us to our two fights and our top two fights. And Merab Dvalishvili, I'm glad I picked him going in. I think maybe a lot of other people, maybe, I don't know, I don't really have my ear to the ground on what everybody thought going into this, but certainly for myself, starting out, the moment this fight was announced, I was like, okay, Merab Dvalishvili is going to win this fight. He is going to go out there. He is going to wrestle Sean O'Malley into oblivion. Easy call. And the more that the more time went on, the closer the fight got, the more I thought about potential for, like, you know, as somebody in the comments here is mentioning, for Merab, his low damage style, the fact that he doesn't really start hurting people until he really starts breaking people. And at the highest level, guys don't tend to break. Aldo, Jan, these guys, they fought against Merab really hard the whole time, and he got very little going outside of his constant pressure and takedowns. And those fights just didn't. I mean, he threw tons of punches. I shouldn't say he got very little going against Jan. He did he threw a ton, but it didn't feel like he had anything behind it. And the more I thought about that, the more I was like, you know, maybe there's a way Sean O'Malley's just going to catch him, especially if Merab does his whole slow start thing, kind of feels things out, kickboxes for a couple of minutes. Who knows? And Merab did go out there. He did slow start. He did kickbox for a couple of minutes. And I really worried that me picking Merab had made a fool of myself. And then it just turns out that he was and he started out way inside his own head, with Sean inside his own head, with the whole thing, arguing with the corners, arguing with the ref, just kind of all over the place, real skittish. But it turned out that if Merab was in his own head and lost at the beginning of that fight, Sean was way worse off, and he did not have any idea what to do with Dvalishvili's takedown game, especially, and I think this was probably some really good tape study from Dvalishvili. The first thing he did was find his way, shoot in and find his way under Sean's arms around to the back body lock. And that is exactly what Jan did in his fight with O'Malley, where he got 6 takedowns and basically caused O'Malley problems with the wrestling whenever he wanted. And it's a problem that I noticed going in with O'Malley's counter wrestling game, is that he's a fighter, because he's such a counter targeting fighter. He's a fight, you know, he really wants to be there and sit down on something heavy, make people pay for pursuing him. When people try to wrestle him, he tends to be a sprawl and then damage kind of counter wrestler. It's something, once again, talked about the spit in the Vivi. It's kind of similar to Justin Gaethje in this way, where he's a fighter who he doesn't want to just counter the wrestling and then keep wrestling and keep countering and win the wrestling battle. He wants to win the wrestling battle quick and then start hurting you. And for Dvalishvili, for him to find his way, like turn the corner, to get in on a takedown and to make Sean try to shuck him off hard and give up access to his back, give up access to another takedown, it screwed with Sean's head really bad. And from that point on, in the second round, when Sean went in, or when Dvalishvili went in for the takedown, you could see O'Malley hesitate. He stopped right as the takedown was coming in. You could see he was trying to figure out what was going to happen, whether he should punch and try to hurt Merab coming in, or whether he should defend the takedown really fast and early and get his arms down, and that hesitation, he just ended up getting put on his back. He ended up getting walked to the ground essentially. And later in the fight, tried another to solve it as well, with Dvalishvili getting back to more kickboxing, getting back to more, just circling out and kind of sparring with O'Malley. O'Malley, you could see once again this sort of predilection from him to be a real damaging striker, to want to make an impact and not just let his opponent have, a kind of a sparring match, if you will. Tried to really sit down hard in front of Dvalishvili for a moment and just walk at him, because Dvalishvili was circling away and being more passive. And the moment he did that, Dvalishvili shot in on him and took him down easy. And yeah, it just felt like pretty much the whole way through the fight, O'Malley, the answer he never wanted to have for the takedown threat was he never wanted the answer to be chain wrestling. And it had to be chain wrestling with Dvalishvili. Had to be pressure, keeping him on the back foot, had to be leading from distance behind the jab, as somebody else noted. But it had to be when Dvalishvili shot in, O'Malley had to be ready to get under hooks, to fight hands, fight grip, to wrestle through situations, and to continue the scramble until it was won or he was separated. And too often he got hung up at the first layer, trying to make the decision and trying to solve the problem of the wrestling game from the outset. Now, all right, we did have somebody in here noting, I don't think the 48-47 is that outrageous. I will mildly agree with that. I think I could see how somebody could give O'Malley the third round, only because while Dvalishvili had control, let me see if I can pull up the stats here. While Dvalishvili had the control moment in that round, wasn't much. It was like a minute. And he did not do a lot of striking in that round compared to the other rounds. And O'Malley seemed like he landed the more damaging strikes. I personally did not score that round for O'Malley because it was a really marginal, tiny amount of offense, and I didn't think it was going to be impactful enough to really sway the judges away from Dvalishvili's volume. But I can see the argument that a judge might lean on the third, and two of them did. And then the fifth, yeah, I think everybody gave that to Sean. So Sean O'Malley, he is, he came on strong late with those front kicks. Those should have been out there from jump. He needed the long strikes. He needed the jab. He needed the body jab. He threw a couple of body jabs, and it worked great. And I know that I'm always the body jab guy. Everybody should be jabbing to the body to try and, especially when you're facing a wrestler, like get low, throw low strikes to the body. Don't let them just duck in under headhunting. But O'Malley really didn't, he was so spooked by the level change threat when Dvalishvili was trying to move in, or when he would get on the front foot. Like I said, it really seemed like O'Malley was trying to solve the whole takedown from the entry, rather than knowing he's going to have to fight his way through it all. And it was either he guesses right and it's fine, or he guesses wrong, which you're always going to guess wrong against somebody who chain wrestles as well as Dvalishvili does, and you're just going to get out-wrestled, outworked. So, yeah, kind of a terrible fight from Sean O'Malley. Really good, solid, predictable fight from Dvalishvili, the title winning fight, but also not a showcase win for Merab. very much the fight everybody, not to give Joe Rogan too many props here, but the thing that Joe Rogan kind of mentioned at the end and obfuscated around in a hype man kind of way. This was the way that people feared Merab Dvalishvili was going to win this fight. A fun-sucking, grinding, wrestling decision where Sean O'Malley couldn't get off the fence and couldn't get off his back. And he did it. And then after the fight, they panned over to Umar Nurmagomedov. I'm like, yeah, he's next. What do you think about that? And Merab, I think wisely, he, as best he could in his second language, was basically like, we need to talk about other things before I just jump in and verbally agree myself to a title fight right now. I just won this belt, and I'd like to probably, not to read his mind, but he probably wants to talk over his contract and find out very quickly that merely having the title is, in fact, very little leverage at the bargaining table with the UFC. And he's probably, as somebody else is noting, either hoping for the Yan Figgy winner or thinking about, well, maybe not a fight with Ilia Topuria, but jumping up to 145, maybe thinking if Topuria loses the belt to someone soon, then he could take on the winner of that. That seems to be the thing in the UFC right now. But, yeah, I don't think he sees Umar Nurmagomedov as a fun, exciting challenger. Yeah, Topuria is scheduled to face Max Holloway. If Max Holloway beats Topuria, which I don't think he will, but if he does, I could easily see Dvalishvili wanting to fight Max Holloway. Or, wanting to fight somebody else. Even then, he might be fine fighting Umar Nurmagomedov. It's probably just, I think it's smart not to, if you just won the belt, not to walk your way right into your next championship fight. So I can't hate him for sort of waffling away from that one, but it was very funny watching him try to figure out how to arrange the phrase of, I'm not really interested in accepting this fight right now, in his head in a way that was mostly just lots of, I think Dana White is really, really great and really awesome, and I'd love to talk to him soon. Unfortunately, of course, the Dvalishvili-O'Malley fight, honestly, could have been an excusable end to this whole pay-per-view, especially for those of us like petty old men like myself, who really like seeing Sean O'Malley get absolutely humbled. I actually got a little bit of catharsis out of that. But it might have been okay. I might have had I might have been able to take it a little better. But man, it just followed the absolute worst co-main event. Valentina Shevchenko, Alexa Grasso. Kind of feels like I don't know if the last fight was worse than the first Shevchenko Grasso fight, but Grasso has definitely been getting worse in each of these fights. And I don't want to say it's not a good idea to have your dad be your head coach for your whole career, but it's maybe a bad idea to have your dad be your coach for your whole career. So I don't know, because I'm not saying Shevchenko is an easy puzzle to solve. She is very, very athletic, very strong, very durable, a really strong positional grappler. But she is somebody that Alexa Grasso found ways to hurt in the previous fights. In the first fight, she did a really good job being scrappy in the pocket and making Shevchenko have to really respect her whenever she'd step inside and try to get close enough to grapple. And I really honestly believe that that's what led her to the finish, was Valentina overextending and trying to rush takedowns because she hated being in the pocket so much with Grasso in that first fight. The second fight, though, she seemed really troubled by Valentina switching stances and didn't really pick up on any or change any nuances of her game as well. And, oh, okay, somebody's noting it's her uncle. Okay, that doesn't make it better. But yeah, it is. If it's whatever it is, of having your a family member be your coach for the whole time, like, there has to be. I mean, this is a problem in women's MMA all over, is that I think ideally coaching needs to be a bit more of a give and take proposition for a fighter, because it's their career and they don't really get do-overs. They don't get, second chances. There has to be a willingness to be able to kind of stretch out and evolve your game, go in different directions. And if your coaching relationship is as close as a family member or a boyfriend or a husband or whatever, it's really hard to break away and be like, yeah, actually what you're doing is not really working for me right now. I got to try other stuff. Like, you risk fracturing a much bigger relationship than just a business relationship. So, yeah, the second fight, it didn't really seem she'd made any adjustments, but she stayed dangerous. In the second fight, she was still a dangerous fighter. She was able to hurt Valentina in clinches and in tie-ups. She was able to be positionally, a dangerous grappler still, even if she always, through all these fights, has given up a lot of good positions to Valentina. And this fight, she just looked flat. She didn't look comfortable standing up. She looked like she was really depending on catching Shevchenko off her back, grappling off of her back, and that was going to be the core of the fight. And if that is the whole core of your fight plan, is I am going to grapple off my back and catch you, and you are fighting a very positionally strong top grappler, you pretty much just given away the win. So, yeah, this was a terrible performance from Shevchenko, or from Grasso. And the worst part of it is that it was, and Shevchenko has always been this person, so I can't be like, it's an especially bad performance from Shevchenko too, but it is the safest, least risk-taking, ugliest, grindiest, wet blanketiest performance of Shevchenko's, maybe of her entire career. Let me look at the stats here for this. Has Valentina Shevchenko ever landed so few strikes in a win? In a win where she didn't finish her opponent? It's her worst fight since Liz Carmouche, which, yeesh. So this was bad. And the unfortunate part is, and we talked about this a little earlier in the week too, I wanted Grasso to win because, to me, Grasso Fiorot and even Grasso Blanchfield, those are pretty interesting fights to me. Like, those are fights that didn't look that good for Grasso potentially. And so they could, Grasso would really have to find some solutions, do something different, make them different fights. Manon Fiorot, she's big and she's strong, and that might be enough to make that fight hard on Shevchenko. But it also feels like a fight where Shevchenko just relentlessly wanting to grab the clinch and get a trip takedown is just, far punch and lay, takedown, lay and pray. It just feels so set. So I'm not at all excited about Shevchenko Fiorot. Natalia Silva is the bright spot here. Hopefully she can save us. Wang Kong, they can maybe, they can push her up. I have hopes for her, but yeah, I'm not. I'm not excited to have Shevchenko back in the driver's seat as champion. Let's see. Talking about the other top contenders, though, we were looking at who could Sean O'Malley face after his loss, and I think you got to do Sean O'Malley, Peter Yan too. Although, well, as noted, though, well, no, Yan versus Figueiredo is a fight that the UFC is teasing, so that could be out there. But yeah, okay, yeah, Sandhagen is a good shout. I do want to see the Yan rematch, but if they are going to do Yan versus Figueiredo, which both guys seem like they probably want, then O'Malley Sandhagen would be the other option. As for Grasso off that fight, you could do Natalia Silva. Do Natalia Silva, or the other fight I would also argue for would be the Macy Barber rematch, because I think Barber has improved since that fight, and she came on really strong by the end of it. I would even honestly argue you could do Barber versus Grasso as like a 5-round non-main event. Honestly, I would be into that fight. I know I might be alone on that, but I like that. I would like that. Blanchfield booked against Rose Namajunas at the moment, so there's not really option for Grasso Blanchfield at the moment. But I guess the loser of Blanchfield Namajunas would be an option. Or honestly, actually, just either of them off a win too. Grasso's just coming off being champ, so really any fighter that is not in for a title fight next, and Manon Fiorot is almost certainly next, could fight Grasso coming off a loss, and I think that would be a totally fine booking. So you could do winner of Blanchfield Namajunas, you could do Macy Barber, you could do Natalia Silva. Lots of good options out there for Alexa Grasso's next fight. All right. That brings us to actually good fights. Diego Lopez, Brian Ortega, and man, Diego Lopez, I keep doubting. He keeps showing up. I did not think he looked great in that Ige fight at all. And I did not think that Brian Ortega was a good matchup for him. I figured Lopez would start strong the way he did. Ortega's always been a slow starter. Was not surprised there, but I figured Ortega could come on as the fight went on. And I even thought, hey, if this is 5 rounds, I would definitely be really confident in Ortega. Now, watching that, I have to think, if this was 5 rounds, Ortega might be dead. One of the big problems for Brian Ortega's career has always been that he does not win rounds. He does not do stuff that win rounds. He does not put out the kind of offense that wins rounds. And it's always been about creating big moments for him that then can win him rounds or win him fights. Yeah. Somebody noting it's the era of Dricus, and Diego Lopez is out there fighting like a featherweight Dricus du Plessis. Especially, that is part of this too, is one of the things that has made Brian Ortega a very good functional featherweight over the years, honestly, too, is that he's been pretty big for a featherweight. He seems big. He's listed at 5'8". That doesn't feel right. Maybe I'm just thinking of him fighting Frankie Edgar, and apparently he's shorter than Chan Sung Jung, which just feels wrong. Maybe it is just him fighting Frankie Edgar and Cub Swanson that has me thinking of Ortega as a big featherweight. And Volkanovski, too, for that matter. But he looked small next to Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez looked he looked big and he looked strong and he looked like a bully in there. And for a guy like Brian Ortega, who always banks on being the guy who will spin a whole round and will shift and who will change the tack of a whole round off one moment of thrilling offense, Lopez was clearly that guy in this fight. If anybody was going to have thrilling moments, if anybody was going to have big spots, it was going to be Diego Lopez. And he was able to make sure that every round stayed firmly in his control, even if Ortega was out there putting out some good strikes, throwing some good kicks, throwing some good punches, whatever. He would just get clocked in return, and Lopez would start pouring it on. Dude's a problem. I still feel like I'm going to doubt if he's going to get matched up with Alexander Volkanovski, if he's going to get matched up with Max Holloway, if he's going to get matched up with Ilia Topuria, I am still going to doubt him. But it has to be said right now, those are the three guys ahead of him. You know, that's it. In that division, I would not, not going to rank Yair Rodriguez over him. You're not going to rank Josh Emmett. Maybe Arnold Allen and Movsar Evloev could have a shot. Arnold Allen might be a guy who could take it to Lopez with his, solid, steady style. But Allen also has a kind of a problem creating big moments that steal rounds. So I don't know. I got to admit that it seems very likely that we will be seeing a Diego Lopez title fight someday in the future. And that feels very wild to me. Anyway, let's see. We've got Topuria Holloway already booked. So I don't think Lopez can just wait for the winner of that. I mean, you got to book him off Alexander. Well, it feels cruel to book him against Alexander Volkanovski. Think if Evloev can beat Aljamain Sterling, I would say book the Evloev rematch. That fight has the right heat to it, even though I think Dana White would not want to kill Lopez's momentum for Evloev, who I believe he called pretty ridiculously boring for his win over Allen after UFC 297. So, yeah, I mean, I guess maybe you do book Arnold Allen versus Diego Lopez next. I definitely think they would give Diego Lopez a title shot before they gave one to the Aljo Evloev winner. The way White was telling him he's number 3 in the division after that win, I would say, yeah, do a top contender fight against Arnold Allen. You could do it against Alexander Volkanovski, but I just kind of, I don't want that for Volkanovski. All right. Just for the hell of it, somebody's asking what I think about Chandler versus Oliveira. I think that's a good fight. And I think that it is very... if Michael Chandler were not such a walking, hang in there, baby, office positive empowerment meme machine, and if he were not so confident and talking down to all of his haters when everybody told him that waiting for Conor McGregor was a stupid thing and he shouldn't do it, and that he was wasting his career trying to wait for this man who was probably never fighting again. If it weren't for that, I would feel sorry for Chandler. But he did do all did happen. And so, yeah, it is what it is. And I like the Oliveira fight. That's a fun fight. So go for it. And somebody saying it feels unearned for Chandler, but all right, I will say Chandler has, if nothing else, earned all of the UFC freebies he can get, because that man absolutely towed the company line and told everybody and just fed everybody constant bullshit for 2 full years for a fight that is never going to happen. Yeah. Somebody reminding me Chandler doesn't want my sympathy, so he's not going to get it. Anyway, that brings us to fight of the night. A potential fight of the year candidate. I know Joshua Van Edgar Chairez was on this card too, and that was also ridiculous. But Esteban Ribovich, Daniel Zellhuber, that was an incredible war. Absolute thriller. I can't believe Esteban Ribovich did not get a 10-8 round for round 3. I get that he got hurt to start that round, and normally I'd be like, oh, well, he got hurt and his opponent got hurt, so that's a 10-9. One guy got hurt more than the other, but both got hurt. There was damage on both sides. Esteban Ribovich beat the brakes off Daniel Zellhuber for that last round. It is amazing to me that Daniel Zellhuber is still alive, let alone conscious right now. Still, 2 hours after that fight happened, 3 hours after that fight happened, I am shocked that man is probably walking around somewhere talking to people and not on a ventilator somewhere. I'm glad. I don't want anybody to get hurt by that like that, but he got shit kicked within an inch of his life. And if you get beat like that, that has got to be a 10-8 round to me. I mean, what are the stats on that round? Just that one round, he got outlanded 92-43. He ate 92 strikes in one round. I'm sorry. Even if Daniel Zellhuber is credited with the only knockdown in that round, he can't eat 100 punches in a round and have people be like, oh yeah, well, 10-9, that's fine. Absolutely brutal war. Hell of a performance of a lifetime from Esteban Ribovich. I don't think he'll ever have a fight that good again, honestly. Like, dude's a lot of fun. I'm not taking anything away from him, but I expected him to lose that fight. He looked like he was very likely to lose that fight when it started, from the first round, having a lot of trouble with Zellhuber's length. And he just bit down and stepped in there and went after it. Absolute dog. Just incredible fight. And, yeah, I mean, if you're Ribovich, like, look, okay, not seriously, because I know that he wouldn't want to hear this, and this is just going to sound insulting to him, but if you're Esteban Ribovich, like, man, hang him up. Put that fight on your wall. Collect your checks. I'm hoping, let me see, have they published any of the bonuses yet? They have. You got an extra 50 grand. Collect your check. Right off into the sunset of legend. Like, you're never gonna have one like that again on this kind of momentous pay-per-view, on this kind of moment. It's just not gonna. That's it. Like, that's the high point. So, amazing fight for him. All right, that brings us to a flyweight bout. Also a really quality scrap. Ronaldo Rodriguez, Ode Osborne, and Rodriguez he's a mess, but he's also a problem. Man absolutely does not quit And I mean, I can't believe. Honestly, I'm sure Joe Rogan saying it was done and it was close made it that much worse. But Ode Osborne absolutely had him dead to rights in that triangle to start this fight. Had that thing as locked down gets. Absolutely wrapped it up. And he had this fight done. And I honestly think that the only reason that fight did not get finished right there, that Rodriguez didn't tap. I mean, obviously, he didn't go unconscious. So he was right not to tap. But it was purely the drive to not lose on this Mexican Independence Day card on a platform that was being clearly positioned for him to shine. And it was absolutely just that heart that had him not tapping there, because that submission was in. It was done. It was a wrap. And for him to bull out of that and go out and put it on Ode Osborne for the next 2 rounds. I mean, the third round obviously got a bit sloppy because they both pretty much spent it all before that. But I thought he won. I thought he won the second and third round. I can see the argument for giving Osborne the third. I just didn't think he did as much damage. I thought that even the few shots Rodriguez landed were just bigger shots. They deserved, if damage is going to be our top scoring criteria, they deserve the nod in a round where Osborne otherwise got a little top control he didn't do anything with, landed a few strikes that didn't look like they hurt at all, just kind of, sloppy third round. But incredible heart from Rodriguez. I was glad to see him get that win. And quality scrap, honestly. I don't know that he's a really wild and sloppy fighter, so I don't know that he's actually going to be like a contender in that division, but he certainly made a name for himself as a fun action fighter on a stage where, it was really positioned for him to shine. So great for him. All right, that brings us to a women's bantamweight bout. Let's see. Actually, is there a fight for Rodriguez that makes sense? Most of these fights just aren't that important, so I don't really feel like there's any sense in trying to match them up or talk about, who should they fight next. But flyweight is such a small division, and Rodriguez got such a big win there. Kind of thinking I mean, it'd be mean, but I'd love to see him fight Bruno Silva. That'd be a war. Or he could do Andre Lima. Andre Lima's fun. Somebody mentioning Joshua Van. Joshua Van, also a fun option. I just never like to match guys up from the same card. I think that's the lazy way to go. I know we just watched them here on the same night, so it's easy to be like, oh, yeah, well, match him up with the guy right next to him. I won't do it. So I'm going to say match him up with I'll say I match him up with Andre Lima. That'd be a fun fight. All right. That brings us to a women's bantamweight bout. Norma Dumont, Irene Aldana. And I guess there, I actually thought it might be a bad sign early in the night when I was watching this, running my live thread. I'm going to shout it out here. I know I always do, but I do over on my Substack, zanesimon.substack.com. I run a free live thread for every event. You come over, hang out, make picks, chat shit, whatever. I don't care. It's a good time, I promise. But in this fight, I was noting man, this might be a really bad sign for Alexa Grasso in the main event if this is how poorly Irene Aldana is prepared for Norma Dumont. Because, yeah, sure, Irene Aldana's footwork is so plodding. It is true. But Norma Dumont is not a hard fighter to track down. She's not it shouldn't, that should not have dictated this fight, but it absolutely did. Aldana just chased her in the most predictable, unimaginative way possible, made zero adjustments. And the only reason she had even a halfway decent round 3 was that Dumont got so tired from backpedaling that much that she just wore herself out on her bike. So, yeah. Terrible fight from Aldana. Terrible fight from Grasso. Both women looked really underprepared. And that kind of has to come down to camp. That they, this was a big fight moment for both of them. And credit, if that camp is, is really bad, then it's a credit to them both that they were able to rise as high as they are, or they have, and become elite fighters the way they did with these kinds of performances. But it's maybe a sign to try other things, move around a little, test other waters, because this sucked. For Dumont, though, I mean, she's got to be in spitting distance of the title with your top-ranked. We've got Juliana Pena, Raquel Pennington coming up in the fight nobody wants to see, with Ketlin Vieira and Kayla Harrison coming up to create a title fight afterward that nobody's going to care about outside of the excitement of Kayla Harrison being new before all the UFC fans that never watched PFL key into the fact that she's just another boring grinder. And should Aldana's cut, this is a good note, should Irene Aldana's corner have stopped the fight? Yes. In a world where MMA corners stop fights, yeah, that was one of the worst cuts I've ever seen in my life. And the cut man deserves a special note for doing fuck all with it between rounds before it opened up so wide. He didn't put any Vaseline in that. They stuck a Q-tip in it and sent her back out there, and that was it. Yeah, they absolutely should have done something to. They should have got her. I mean, that is, the booth was talking about she's going to need plastic surgery after that. That's how bad it was. It definitely was the point to stop this fight. At least after the second round, she was getting beat. So, she wasn't going to go out there and knock Norma Dumont out. Just call it. There was no need for that. So, yes, I will say it. They should have stopped that fight. There's no reason to do it. But I'm not surprised they didn't. No MMA corner stops fights. It's not how this sport works. Anyway, we've got some kind of lame title fights on the horizon. But Norma Dumont off of this fight, honestly, she should try to talk Macy Chasen into a rematch, and if she can't, then try to pick off Mayra Bueno Silva or the loser of Harrison Vieira, because she is one fight away from a title fight right now. But with Vieira Harrison on the horizon, that title fight might be a year away before she can get it. So, yeah, chase the rematch with Macy Chasen. Chasen probably, if Chasen's smart, she won't give her that rematch. At which point should default for Mayra Bueno Silva or the loser of Vieira Harrison. All right. We're going to kind of run through the rest of these because, honestly, I'm here alone, but I am being really long-winded, much more so than I thought I would be. Ignacio Bahamondes, Manuel Torres, as advertised, a banger, and a banger that I am happy to have picked correctly. Bahamondes does his best work when people are chasing him, running at him, brawling with him, trying to go after him. Torres was set up perfectly in that situation for Bahamondes. Love those two straight rights he landed. Planted Torres square on his ass. Beautiful fight from Bahamondes. Great win for him. And I'm especially glad that I called this one because I have been, much like Diego Lopez, I have been calling Manuel Torres to lose because I'm just not sold on his blitzing, start hot, go out and knock somebody out instantly style. It's wild, it's sloppy. It's not like he constructs anything or sets anything up. He usually just goes after people and makes something happen in the midst of chaos. And I've got to respect it. It's been working for him, but it's never struck me as something that was sustainable. So I've kept picking against him. He's made it look like a really stupid idea. So I'm really glad Bahamondes showed up for me here and got this win. All right. That brings us to a women's strawweight bout. Ketlin Souza, Yasmin Haragui. And man, Yasmin, she is in the shit. She has got to get it figured out. A couple fights ago, when she was beating Yasmin Lucindo and Stella Nunes, even with her win over Sam Hughes, she looked like she could be a potential top contender. You get her in the second and third round, and you get her warmed up, and her combinations are fluid. Her defense is on point. She looks like she just really gets into a flow state. But the problem is she starts fast and she starts cold. And people questioning her chin. I mean, I'm not even sure like the chin is awful. It's like Donald Cerrone, where he got stopped a lot, and it's worth being like, okay, maybe Donald Cerrone didn't have the greatest chin, but he rarely got stopped late in fights. And for a lot of fighters, for a lot of fighters that seem chinny, when they start the fight, they don't have the timing down. They don't really have a feel for the bout as it's about to happen. They're cold. I mean, it's what we call it being cold. They're also brittle. Like, they're easier to hurt. They're not ready for anything. And Haragui is that fighter, and she needs to figure out that that's what's going on, because she can't keep doing this. Like Ketlin Souza, she turned out and put on the performance of her career here. I'm not going to take that away from her. She threw way more volume. She sat down on her punches way better than she ever has before. Going into this, she has been a pure swinging cling artist. One punch, clinch, get taken down, get worked over, get up, throw one punch, clinch, get taken out. Just the same thing over and over again. Not a good fighter, not fun to watch. She went out here and she was ready to brawl. Credit to her. But this is not a fight that Haragui should have been losing. But she is so insistent on pressuring and starting hot while cold, and it is getting her crushed. And she's had several fights. Not only, she got dropped and finished here, and at 115, it's a big problem, no question. And she got knocked out against Easy Gomes, but she also got hurt against Estela Nunes. She got hurt against Yasmin Lucindo early. In every one of these fights, it's been in the first round. And she has got to figure out that she cannot charge out and try and take the fight from people early on. She has to let herself get warmed up, because, if everybody's knocking you out at 115 pounds, you are going to be relegated to pure filler, low prelim status. All right. Moving on. Joshua Van, Edgar Chairez. And, okay. I'm going to sound a little stupid here, but I'm always willing to sound stupid, if nothing else, because how could I do this show if I wasn't willing to sound stupid? It's not a robbery. I'm glad Joshua Van won. I think he fought the better fight, but I kind of expected Chairez to get it from the judges. Kind of expected him to get round 2, because I think he honestly, just honest to God, and he got hurt really bad in round 2. So I'm not saying, like I say, it's not a robbery. I kind of thought Joshua Van got hurt worse in round 2. And I I'm surprised that judges didn't reward Chairez for that, because Chairez looked like he was hurt bad to the body, and he looked like the ref might step in and wave it off for a TKO. But Van looked like he might go out. Van looked like he was on the border of getting knocked out. And so it is incredible to me that Van came back and pushed through and got this win. It is a testament to what a good fighter he is and what a good prospect he is. But yeah, a little bit like Yasmin Hargui, Van, he's just kind of they both tend to start with kind of mindless pressure early in their fights. They push it on people and they look to get reads by pressuring without necessarily offering a ton of really great offense themselves. They're going out there, they're putting out combos, but it's kind of rote because they're trying to gather the information that their opponent is going to give them for the strikes coming back at them. And we've seen this from Van multiple times, like we've seen from Hargui multiple times. That can get you hurt really badly at this level early on in fights. So, it's a testament to Van. It's a testament to his quality. It's a testament to the reads he gets and the ability he has, the athlete he is, that he was able to put it back together, find his takedowns, grind out this win, make it happen. He is a very good prospect at 125. But like Hargui, he's got to be learning. He's got to start learning lessons from these fights. This is a time for him, honestly. He came back after 60 days, like right at the end of a knockout suspension. This is the time to take a break, man. Take some time. You got your win. You got your show money. Take some months, get better, work in the gym, work on advancing your game, and use these as learning experiences. So, otherwise, though, if he does want to bounce back and take another fight soon, then, maybe, yeah, there's Ronaldo Rodriguez out there. I don't like to just jump on that kind of booking. But Jesus Aguilar would be a pretty good fight. He's tough. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Or there's not really a lot of other options. So anyway. Oh, yeah. He called out Durden after the fight. Sure. Cody Durden would be a very good fight, very fun fight for Joshua Van, but I'd still rather just see him take time off. All right, that brings us finally to the opening bout, bantamweight bout, Raul Rosas Jr. against Aori Chileng. And I really liked this booking from the outset. I think it was a great next step fight for Raul Rosas. But he also showed why this was a good booking and a necessary step up for him, because he just kind of had to grind out a win. His striking on the feet is really rudimentary. He's got a ton of confidence. He's willing to go for it. He is a very good positional grappler, a strong wrestler, a really confident fighter, much more confident than his skills should allow, but he's got the confidence of youth. And he went out and he got a confident athlete's win here. He's not a terrible athlete, and he went out here with a fighter who's going to give up a lot of bad wrestling positions. And he took all those positions, and he made that win happen. It was the right step for him, but it also shows, this is why you want your fighter to take a small step like this, because it's like, okay, now his next step should be a step sideways. Fight somebody like Alateng Hai Li would be a good sidestep. Or Vinicius Oliveira, something like that. You know, not a huge step up for his next fight. Don't. It is very tempting if he really wants to retire by 25 the way he said he does, which I joke, like, what is he going to retire before he even gets ranked? He'll be ranked, I know, before that, but I'm an old man. I hate confident kids. What can I say? If you really want to do the thrilling prospect fight, then you put him in with Peyton Talbot. But if I'm Raul Rosas' camp, I did not book that fight. It is the fun, cool fight. I want to see it. It is actually the fight I would want to see. Do Talbot versus Rosas, but maybe don't. If he's trying to be champ by the time he's 25 and retire, not just be champ, but defend the belt and retire by that time. Maybe don't do that fight. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to wrap it up because I have gone over an hour now. And I guess I'm not going to do any bonus content because I'm by myself and it doesn't make sense to go and rate it all by myself and all that, whatever. I will say it was a unique night for the UFC. It was, at the end, not a great pay-per-view experience for home viewers. Dvalishvili and Shevchenko fights were not an entertaining way to end this card. It was a new and spectacular thing. I think it will wow people in the boardroom, which is what I think it is meant to do. And it probably made the UFC a lot of money, so they're probably going to talk about this as a big success. But, if I had to give this whole card a rating, I'd probably give it like a 3 as a pay-per-view. Maybe a 3.5 for production value. And for doing something new, I could even give it a very charitable 4 just for doing something new. But it was definitely, like, I can't personally imagine having spent thousands of dollars on tickets and then having to just feel absolutely drained by the end of it. So for those people live who did pay thousands, I hope you had fun. All right, man. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Appreciate all of you. Subscribe, support the channel, support the Substack, really, more than the channel, more than the YouTube. Support the Substack. That's what really helps me. And I appreciate it a ton. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Adios.